Good afternoon. Welcome everyone. This is the Africam show brought to you by explore.org. Such a pleasure to have you with us. My name is Russell Gerber, with you of course for the next half an hour as we go through the live cameras and have a look to see what's around. Also go through some of our highlights from the last week. And as always, if you have anything on your mind, if you'd like to pop in any questions, please feel free to do so. We'd love to engage with you, even if you just say hello and let us know where you're from. Always nice to hear where people are watching from all over the world. And of course, everything is live and unscripted, so we never know what we're going to get and what might come on down to the various waterholes around the country. But thank you for joining us, everyone. Got another great show for you today. Some really fun stuff that was going on the cameras in the last week. Pretty intense things, and predators are back again visiting. We are of course live now. This is at Katmai, where we've got a beautiful female giraffe having an afternoon snack. And all looking fairly peaceful here at Katmai. There was some zebra around a little earlier as well. They seem to have moved on for now. As we're watching the reverse side of this young giraffe, she's a little obscured. Why don't we pop over to Rosie's and see who's there? I think we just had an arrival at Rosie's. We can have a look. There we go. We do have some zebra at Rosie's. These of course plains zebra or Burchell's zebra. Looks like they're just moving away now. Quick drink and then disappearing into the wilderness. They don't tend to hang around too long if they're a little anxious. We've got our Egyptian geese in the foreground here. I do love this camera, easily one of my favorites, just a beautiful view. Of course on the premium channels we've also got the Rosie's Rock Cam, which is another gorgeous angle. And the geese are a little quieter now, approaching the end of the breeding season. You can see this one here just having a little preen of the old feathers. And as we wait for any new visitors, I think we'll give you our little quiz question for the day. And you're also smart that I've decided to get you and give you a little bit of a more difficult one this week. Bearing in mind you have to stop yourself from Googling the answer, if you can. But today's quiz question is, we've had some really great activity of wild dog on the camera recently. Now, wild dogs are one of the most endangered carnivores in Africa, with only around 6,000 left in the wild at best guess. But it is only the second most endangered carnivore in Africa. So my question today is, who is Africa's most endangered carnivore? Who is Africa's most endangered carnivore? We'll get to the answer towards the end of the show. Let me know your best guesses. And in the meantime, why don't we pop over to Olifants River. It's Stephanie says hello. Hello, Stephanie. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thanks for joining us. And we've got a plethora of animals at the woolly fronts. Looks like we've got some chacma baboons and, of course, some greater kudu coming onto the scene. Looks like a couple of females in the foreground and a young male in the background. Pretty clear sexual dimorphism in the kudu. All the Trigolaphus genus, which is the spiral horned antelopes. We often see the males having horns and the females without. Beautiful sight, hanging out underneath the fig tree. I'm not sure exactly of that species of tree, but I suspect there is some fruit there under the tree this time of year, which is attracting all the animals. But everything looking pretty peaceful, and as I said, we've had quite a lot of carnivore action for the time being, though. They seem to be a little scarce this afternoon, but you never know when one might arrive on the scene. But on that note, I think let's dive into our first clip of the day. One of the highlights from last week, which is really interesting. And not something you'll see every day on the cameras. And this is, of course, a mating pair of leopards, and some of our viewers out there and our colleagues in the field at the lodges have been so kind as to share a bit of information on who we are looking at here. This is the airfield male that we've seen around in the last week or two. I've caught him on camera a few times. And the female is the Monzo female. Now, the airfield male is initially named from the Mala Mala area, and most of the leopards tend to be named from where they're first seen, especially if they're still young cubs. Wherever the first den is, that's often how they get their name. They'll be named for the tree that they're denned underneath. But here we have that big male, the airfield male, and the Monzo female. So who knows what might come in the next few months. We'll keep an eye out. Of course, leopards are pretty good at hiding their cubs when they're very little. But an absolutely beautiful sighting, and again, as I mentioned, not something we get to see every day. You know, leopards tend to be very solitary animals, spend a lot of their time alone. The females spend a bit more time with others, with their cubs, of course, when they're born, and then with the male when they are mating, normally around about a week or 2 weeks. So if all goes well, likely in about 100 days, which is the gestation period of leopard, we should see a couple of cubs, normally 2 or 3. More often than not, only one of the 3 will survive. And they're generally born in pretty dense cover, like I mentioned, underneath rock crevices, caves, even in thick shrubs. So maybe we get lucky and get to see the next generation of leopards for Africam. But a really, really amazing sighting. So lucky to have caught that on the cameras. I've known many people who've been on a number of safaris and been out to the bush hundreds and hundreds of times that have never seen leopards mating like that. We've had some really cool sightings like that in the last few weeks. We had those aardvarks mating, we had porcupines mating. There certainly does seem to be some romance in the air at the moment. Maybe it's something in the water. Let's go over to Katmai and see who we've got hanging out there. We're of course back live now looking at our beautiful female giraffe. We're over at Katmai now. A few moments ago there was some elephant hanging about, but it looks like they've eluded us. That's okay. They might come back again. We might just see them. It always tends to give us a lot of elephants, and I know many of you are very fond of the camera itself, is Tembi. We've gone back to our beautiful giraffe now. You can see the hair on the top of those ossicones. Pretty narrow ossicones as well, which is a pretty good indicator of who we're looking at in terms of the sex of the giraffe. The males have much thicker horns, as they're often referred to, and are generally bald on the top of the horns, mostly from fighting. Always pretty impressive to watch giraffes feeding. Of course, they have those incredibly long tongues that they wrap around each of the branches, and they're quite fond of acacia. You'll often see them eating off of acacia trees with absolutely massive thorns or spines. And you can see a couple of red-billed oxpeckers hanging out on the side of this giraffe. Also pretty common to see alongside the mega herbivores. We get two species of these oxpeckers, the red-billed, which it looks like these two are, and then we also get a yellow-billed oxpecker, which we don't see quite as often in this region. And they of course play a pretty big role in removing ticks and parasites off of the giraffe. They can be a pest as well from time to time. If there is a cut or a wound on the animal, they can sometimes actually keep those wounds open. They do actually lick a little bit of the blood, and will sometimes eat flies or insects attracted by the open wound. So they can be a blessing as well as a hindrance, but generally speaking they do a lot more good than bad. They're also pretty handy when you're tracking out in the bush. They give a very distinctive chattering type of call, and because they're often associated with big megafauna like giraffe and sometimes rhino and particularly buffalo, you can use that call as an indicator of a potential big animal not too far away. Funny enough, they don't land on elephants very often. Elephants really don't take well to birds catching a ride on their backs. And more often than not, if you see an egret or one of these little oxpeckers land on an elephant, they'll quickly chase them away. And obviously it's pretty handy to have a trunk to do so. The other animals are not quite as fortunate to have an appendage to swat away the oxpeckers or freeloading egrets. And Soren, thanks for watching. Soren says, amazing. It is indeed amazing. What such a wonderful animal to watch, and such a uniquely African animal, of course. And then we've got a couple of quiz answers. Finder 2057 thinks maybe lions are the most endangered carnivore in Africa. And he says that maybe lions are just good poster animals for the conservation cause, but they sure get a lot of press as critically endangered. They sure do. They are, of course, such an iconic African species as well. But in truth, they also are in big decline, numbers of lions across Africa, for a number of reasons. But it's people like you out there who enjoy watching the wild, who spread awareness of the amazing wild places we still do have in the world, particularly here in Africa. And of course, conservation tourism, that is such a big, or plays such a big role in protecting large areas for conservation that would otherwise be populated by an ever-growing human population. So spread the word, folks. There's not so many wild places left in the world anymore. So nice to be able to enjoy it here with all of you. But I think let's dive into our next highlight. Now this one's a little bit more gruesome. So for those of you who've got a little bit of a queasy stomach, just be prepared. It was a very interesting video though of a leopard that we've seen quite often on the cameras, that we've come to know quite well. A female leopard we've dubbed the Rosie's leopard. And this was also at Rosie's Pan. And if you look carefully, you'll see that there is a big injury on her right hind leg, which you'll notice as soon as she stands up. Now you'll be happy to know we've spoken to our colleagues on the ground, and it was initially thought that this big injury, you see it there, it looks absolutely horrendous, but we've been informed by the team on the ground and the local vet who works in the reserve as well that it is actually a fairly superficial wound. It looks like just a flap of skin that has been torn off. Now of course there is the potential for infection and things like that, and she will probably spend a lot of her time licking it clean, keeping it as clean as possible, but they'll be keeping an eye on her as much as possible. We have seen her after this as well, where she grabbed what looked like the kill of potentially some wild dogs that had been left behind, and she grabbed it and took off with it. But if you look carefully too, she's walking pretty well, not limping too badly, so it doesn't seem to have impacted her mobility too much. But we will keep you informed on that as well. But for the time being, she seems to be doing okay. And then let's see who else we've got. A couple of comments. Robert Taub, wish I was there. Robert, we wish you were here too. Maybe one day you can save up some money and come visit the amazing wild places in Africa. And one of you was asking as well, June Yolo, you were asking, I'm from New Jersey, what part of Africa is this? This is South Africa, June. Cameras are all over the country. We have quite a few around the Kruger National Park area, some down in or up in the northeastern part of the country in an area known as Tembe, and then we've got another camera here up in the northern parts of South Africa, northern central parts of Africa in Tau. Where we've got a couple of springbok and wildebeest. Tau tends to be a bit drier than our easternmost camera, Tembe, which which is a little bit more of a tropical to subtropical climate. The animals around Tau and our other camera at Camphor's Dam. Much more desert or semi-arid regions that the animals have adapted to. But thank you for your question. I hope you can stay with us, June. Daniela asks, are the birds keeping the giraffe clean? Yes, Daniela, that's right. Those were oxpeckers, and they do remove parasites from the hosts that they're hanging out on. So they do play a pretty good role most of the time. And Stephanie, answer to our quiz question. I'm guessing it's not a leopard. No, it's definitely not a leopard. Maybe cheetah. Do they even have cheetah in Africa? Yes, we do. It's definitely, we've had some great cheetah viewing of late on the cameras. So keep your eyes peeled. We've seen some around Tau as well on this particular camera. But yes, we absolutely do have cheetah all over Africa. The only other place we have cheetah occurring is actually in the Middle East, and then a small population in India that has been reintroduced there, if you're interested. And Deborah says, poor beautiful creature, that has to hurt. Deborah, I'm absolutely sure that that wound is pretty painful for that female leopard, but as I said, we'll keep an eye on her, and so will the lodge. But you'd be amazed at how resilient the animals are, and what they can recover from after a big injury like that. So I suspect she will be absolutely fine. But yeah, as I said, we see her pretty often. She does enjoy that territory around Rosie's, which is how she got her name. So it's likely we will see her again, and we'll probably see that wound healing. I'm always hopeful. We'll stay positive. And I think before we run out of time today, we've got one more highlight that I wanted to show you, which has been such a special thing that we've now got on the cameras. And this is a wonderful clip from the Nomad Cam, and if you're keen on following the Nomad Cam, all you have to do is sign up as a premium subscriber on Africam. And this, of course, is the beautiful new wild dog den where the Nomad Cam is situated at the moment. And a really great story that some of my colleagues have informed me, and our teams on the ground have filled us in. This is a new wild dog den, as I said, with it looks like about 5 pups. They're still looking pretty young, but pretty mobile. I'd say probably between 8 and 12 weeks old. Actually looking pretty mobile. I'd say probably closer to 12 weeks if I had to guess, but we'll see if we can get some further info on that. But what's interesting about all this is that this pack was actually outside of the protected area, outside of the wildlife reserve. And outside the reserves they are under a lot of threat from all sorts of subsistence farmers, of course human populations, vehicles, cars, roads, and of course even just mixing with domestic animals. They are particularly susceptible to our domestic dog diseases like canine distemper, parvo, and even rabies. So all those things have played a huge role in diminishing the numbers of wild dog across Africa. But so we were actually told that there was a project in place to actually move the dogs into the protected area, but essentially entice them or chase them back into the reserve. But before they could actually initiate the entire plan, unbelievably, the dogs decided to move in all by themselves. So incredibly, here they are, back in the protected area, which is fantastic news. live now at Tau, of course, but yeah, really cool. We get to keep an eye on one of Africa's most endangered carnivores. As I said, not the most endangered carnivore, which was our question today. A few of you have come in with some pretty good answers, but no one's nailed it just yet. Who is the most endangered carnivore, large carnivore in Africa? And Anna Emerson says, thank you, Mr. Gerber. I always look forward to learning more each week about these beautiful creatures. Thank you, Anna. That is my absolute great pleasure. I'm so glad you're enjoying the shows, and I hope you stay with us. The more people we have joining, the more people we have sharing what we're up to, of course, the more cameras we can get out there into the wild places of Africa. So thank you for joining us. We got a little Steenbok having a drink. And then Annika asks, will the skin flap have to be sutured? Annika, they will do all they can not to get involved in treating that leopard at all, unless there is an infection. Even then, the lodge management and game management have to make a decision on whether they want to intervene at all. Often we don't intervene and let nature take its course. Most often the only times we get involved is if there is a human-made injury, something like an animal wounded from poaching, or perhaps a snare, things like that. Otherwise, unless it's a critically endangered species, more often than not, game management teams will not get involved. So we'll just have to see how she does. But as I said, I have a lot of hope for her. I've seen leopards in particular heal from far worse injuries than that. We've actually seen it happen here on the Africam cameras with one of our older males who had a horrible leg injury as well, but that one was far more of a deep wound, and even then he managed to recover. And we just come over from Tau back to Olifants River. Aussie Jan, welcome back, Aussie Jan. I don't know if you are from Australia, Jan, but if you are, well done on your cricket team taking the ICC T20 World Cup. I'll begrudgingly congratulate you. Our team did not quite make it to the final, but well done. Here we are at Olifants River with our beautiful kudu and baboons. It looks like a couple of banded mongoose, or if it's just one mongoose maybe. I can't see any others. Does look like a banded mongoose hanging out underneath the tree as well. But again, before we run out of time, it's time to give you our quiz question answer for the day. Well done to all of you who had a guess, but yeah, no one got it today, so it looks like I was a little bit too difficult, this question, but hey, we're here to learn, aren't we? But yeah, as it stands, the current most endangered large carnivore in Africa is the Ethiopian wolf. There are only about 500 of the wolves left in the world, and they all live in the highlands of Ethiopia. And it's one of the world's most rare canids. And my colleagues told me just the other day, some of them who've been lucky to see them, their entire range is limited to pretty much only 7 isolated ranges, pretty high altitude of over 3,000 meters. And even though numbers suggest that around 500, they reckon there's only around 300 to 400 adults, breeding adults. So yeah, they are a species very much under threat and of course critically endangered. It looks a lot like a red fox if you have a look online at what they look like. But also a beautiful, beautiful animal. Hopefully I'll be lucky enough to see them one day. But well done everyone who did give an answer. And I hope you all enjoyed the show. We're quite busy this afternoon with a lot of animals on all the different cameras. And as I said, some really cool stuff on the highlights from the last week or so. But unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. Thank you for your interaction and all your questions. Always such fun chatting with you all. Of course, we'll be back again next week, same time and same place. Checking out all the fun things on the cameras and anything that might come on down. It's always live and unscripted, like I said, but unfortunately we've run out of time for this week. Thanks again everyone. Please do like and subscribe and let everyone know about Africam and explore.org. But we'll see you all again this time next week. Have a good one. I'll see you then. Cheers for now.